anything that I might have been feeling, oh, that thing got buried deep. But once I retired and that uniform came off, all that stuff started bubbling up to the surface. And that's what I went through, right? Like, if I'm not an EOD guy anymore, like, who the hell am I?
A little bit about our guest, Sergeant Major Taamir Ransome. He's an educator, a person that's helping fellow veterans. He's also made history. He was the first Afro-American, 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment, Delta, EOD operator in American history. Kudos to you. You served from the Gulf War, you served GWOP, and you were also deployed into Syria.
So I was never an SF guy, right? Never a Green Beret. I've been through everybody's selection, and then I finally got it. I made it to the unit.
But let's talk about what makes you, man. You go from a mainstream EOD operator, which I don't know what mainstream is. It's EOD operator, explosive ordnance disposal operator.
Mm-hmm.
You go from a mainstream EOD operator, which I don't know what mainstream is. It's exceptional human being, to tier 1 element.
Mm-hmm.
You run towards what others will run away from, what will literally turn us into pink dust.
Right.
But then you have the skill sets, and this is what I want to get into, calming it all down to operate and defuse something that's the unknown, something that can cause a lot of damage and destruction. Talk about that. Let's talk about that, man. What did you learn in EOD school? How did you apply it? And how do you get to the level that you did?
It's a good question. So I guess, so I've always been like analytical, right? Like that's just been, and like EOD school just kind of gave me a place to like focus my mind, right? So I wouldn't say that like that EOD school taught me a mindset, right? Like I grew up questioning everything, right? That's kind of probably one of the biggest mindsets from an EOD standpoint is question everything, right? Nothing is true, right? Like nothing is what it seems, right? But I mean, like growing up in New Jersey and then, you know, spending time in like the Atlanta area, like I always thought that, right? Like, so it was a thing of where I was always comfortable at all these schools that I went to. Not comfortable from a standpoint I wasn't trying, just there's nothing that the military threw at me that the military in itself, the training was good. It was nothing that the military threw at me that I wasn't prepared for just from everyday life. And I know it's kind of hard to believe, like, especially in 2026, man, like there's some, like I joined in 2001 and it was a thing of where nothing that I did training wise ever caught me off guard. Right. So it was like the military legitimately gave me a home, which is crazy because I didn't grow up with a military family. Right. Like that's just growing up on the streets. Right. Like I just felt that like the military gave me a purpose for all the crazy stuff I had been doing prior to the military. So that's the same thing with EOD school. Like I wouldn't say that like definitely wasn't out like making bombs, but I was freaking tinkering and I understood electronics. And I was always like, shoot, we had like as a kid, I had surround sound from, you know, dumpster diving. And I was, you know, freaking me and my brother, man, my mom couldn't afford video game systems for us. So like I was dumpster diving, found an Atari and figured out how to hook up to our TV. Like, so like diffusing IEDs was just the reverse of that. Right. So it's just, and that's how I always looked at it. Everything in my life was like, I was always prepared for this. I just had to apply it the right way.
All right. So I get it. I get the part that you were tinkering. So got the adrenaline, right, going. Then you have to walk towards something that requires calmness, methodical thinking, while chaos is reigning around you. Let's talk about that mindset. What do you do, bro? How do you get there?
It's funny, right? Like, and it's kind of like the perfect storm, right? So I grew up with like kung fu movies. I had I'll tell you about my uncle, right? He moved to Japan, and so he would always send me these books, right? So I grew up reading like the Hagakure and like all these like Bushido code, right? And one of the things that's in there was in order to be a good warrior, right, you have to imagine all the ways you could die, right? So that you don't fear it, right? And then at some point I read, I can't remember the guy's Stephen something. He wrote a really, really good book on the Battle of Thermopylae, right? And in that book they talk about like the Spartans. They talk about they call it, it's not real, but they call it phobologia, right? So like the ability to combat fear, right? And so for me, it was the same. So I had all these books and all these things I was reading growing up, like as a teenager, right? Like I was a freaking nerd, man, right? Like even though I did my dirt, I still wanted to like. One of the things my grandmother told me was like, continue to educate myself because no matter what the world takes from me, they can't take what's in my head, right? And so like even with EOD school, like as when I was deployed or whatever, right? Like I would see an IED. I've already imagined how many ways I can get blown up, how many ways this thing could take care of me, like, or, take me out. Right. And so that made me not fear it. It was just like, if I do these things, and to me, it's all logic, right? Like if I do X, if I do Y, if I don't set this thing up again, it became a battle drill for me. And so I imagine everything I've ever done, even like I hate jumping out of airplanes. I'll tell anybody that any day of the week, right? I think it's the worst way to deliver humans to anything, right? Can't freaking stand jumping out of airplanes. Right. But in order to jump out of the airplane prior to this, I would imagine the most like improbable thing that you could think of, like jumping out and like opening up my parachute and a flock of geese, like getting tangled up in there. Right. So like it would get to the point where you're doing right now where you're laughing. Right. So I will start off with something that was like, oh, this ID could blow up. Right. And like I could turn to pink mist. Right. People, but I never stopped there. I would get to the point where I was laughing at myself, where it's like, well, physically speaking, right? Like, or from a physics standpoint, this thing could blow up and be bubbles, and then that would make me laugh and giggle, and so I was never afraid of it.
So it's radical acceptance, right?
Yes.
Which is one of the things that the unit looks for in personalities and psychology. But that radical acceptance, you have to literally, consciously slow yourself down to deal with the issue at hand, because often you're dealing with the unknown, right? There's no checklist.
Yeah. So, I mean, but you got to think, man, again, me and you talked about this before. I've been doing that my entire life. Whenever there's some crazy stuff going on in Jersey, like growing up, certain things would happen. Like you just take yourself out of that situation and get in your own head the right way, right? Like you always hear like, oh, get out of your head. Nah, dude, I live in my head, man. If I'm afraid of, even when I ride motorcycles, right? Like I'm imagining every way I can go down, right? So that takes away that fear. Because I think that's if you had to actually like what my mindset is, I think about the worst possible thing and I see it and I visualize that, right? It's not like everybody's always like, we went through this whole phase where everybody's a leadership coach and they're like, visualize the win. Man, I visualize the losses, dude. Like the wins are easy to freaking think about. I want to see the losses. That way I'm not afraid to lose.
So there are many who say that in order to overcome fear is to confront it. And that's what you're saying. Am I right?
Yes.
So let's talk about this personality trait that's often looked for when individuals are being selected or sought after for selection, right? The high stakes decision making on your own. Now, you mentioned to me that you were okay being on your own, i.e., when you went to the OTC course.
Mm-hmm.
How many miles did you freaking rock through the Appalachian Trail?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. Enough, more than the human should. Nobody should walk that far.
And you overcame the physical pain, right? But the decision to continue on is the piece that really intrigues me, because I think that those of us like you, many others who have experienced the doubts.
I quit every day. Yeah, like so I explain that people is, one of the things I hate is people are like, take everything a day at a time, right? Days are long as shit, man. So I always take everything a meal at a time. So like in the morning when some stuff is going, bad, I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna quit after lunch. So I'll just make it to lunch, right? And I make it to lunch, I sit down, I get a break, we eat our food, and I'm like, oh, that wasn't too bad. All right, I'm gonna quit at dinner, right? So I make the same thing over. Once I get to dinner, day's over, right? I'm like, I'm gonna quit first thing in the morning. All I gotta do is sleep. And I wake up, I'm rested again, right? So please don't take it a day at a time. That's gonna be like, it's brutal. Take it a meal at a time, right? Like if you like now the only thing that sucks, I would say, is like for guys going to like Ranger school, because sometimes you only get one meal a day, so you got to figure out some other little gates, right? But what's that saying? What's the easiest way to eat an elephant, right? Like that's what it is, right? Like so that's how I look at, like, even today, if I'm having a bad day, I rarely have bad days now, right? Because I'm like, you know what, this morning sucks. I just got to make it to lunch, right? Like, and by the time I make it to lunch, everything I was worried about in the morning is gone.
Bite size. I just thought of a joke that Pitbull, the singer, the rapper, comes on. I can't mention it here because I'll get bleeped. So where'd you go to EOD school?
Eglin Air Force Base down in Florida. So outside of Destin.
Dude.
Yeah, Army guy. So I was an Army guy on the Air Force Base going to a Navy school.
How was that?
It was great. Like we were all four services, so like we all get taught the same thing, right? EOD is one of those like few jobs where everybody's taught the same thing, like, and that's almost across the world. There's like one standard when it comes to like bomb squad, right? Because there's a million ways to make a bomb, but that bomb only blows up one way, so everybody learns the same exact thing.
And then you obviously go to your duty and station, and you also stood up a Ranger unit. Am I right?
Yeah. So I once I graduated EOD school, I went to the 18th EOD company here at Fort Bragg, and then I did a crazy long deployment with those guys, and then stood up the first, right now the only EOD unit that supports Ranger Regiment.
And how was that like compared to school?
It was different. So school was more so geared around so I went to EOD school in 2004, 2005 timeframe. So IEDs were just starting to get like really, really big, and school was still stemmed around the conventional side of things, right? And so there's a way prior to that, like EOD guys had a certain way that they operated, right? Like there's all these robots, you got all this equipment, and when you start talking about like dismounted EOD operations, you can't carry all that stuff. You can't carry a bunch of robots. You can't carry anything. Like you have, it's funny because it's almost like movies, right? Like you can't carry all this stuff. You got rope, you got, a couple of tools here and there, and just your mind, right? And then you have a certain way that you do things, because for conventional guys, once EOD is called, EOD is in charge of everything, right? So it's the same as like if something was happening in downtown Miami, right? Like that same like firehouse mentality, right? EOD guys come around, and then they shut it down. There's all this security, but for dismounted stuff, there is sometimes you may not, do your EOD job, because that might destroy or that might compromise the bigger mission.
Yeah, man, I can remember calling out the bomb squad while I was on the job, and we wanted to get away. Spent some years of homeland training out in the desert, west of White Sands, El Paso, if you will, Mexico. They had a U.S. Army, actually, U.S. government bought a couple of little mining towns, and they do training out there. Did you ever go to those schools?
No. So my brother was stationed. My brother was a combat engineer. He was stationed out at White Sands for his first duty station.
That's where I went to basic at Fort Bliss.
Yeah, you're dating yourself, man.
Yeah, man, a long time ago. And then they don't do basic there anymore.
No.
I was just there in January of this year when we premiered our film. I'm sure you've seen The Hurt Locker.
Yeah.
Was your service like that?
I'm probably one of the few EOD guys who actually liked that movie, because I understood what it was, right? That movie came out probably 5 years too late, right? And then the one thing that I respect movies for what they are. So that movie talked about one EOD team and like focused on one EOD team. And really what happened was that at least when it came out, actually, again, I like the movie, right? I like Jeremy Renner as an actor and all those cats like that. They're in that movie, right? But some of the stuff that was done in that movie, EOD guys are like, I would never do that. But it's like, well, do you really want Hollywood showing what you would really do so that the enemy could see it? So like, take it for what it's worth and realize that it did put EOD guys on the map, even though it portrayed us as a bunch of crazy bastards.
Bro, but let's face it, you don't walk the normal stream.
Yeah. I love the movie, man. Like, again, it put EOD on the map, right? Because I think prior to Hurt Locker, there's a couple of movies out there. You got like movies like Speed, right? Like any bomb squad movie is an EOD movie, right? There's a movie with I think Tommy Lee Jones, where their former, the one guy who's the EOD guy is a former Northern Ireland, IRA guy, right? I can't remember the name of the movie, right? But like any other EOD movie prior to that, like The Hurt Locker is probably the most modern day EOD style movie. Hell, I was even happy when Godzilla one of the Godzilla had a Navy EOD guy in it who was like fighting Godzilla, which I was like, that's cool. I would never fight Godzilla, but I mean, like, at least put EOD on the map, right? EOD guys can do anything.
I don't want you to violate that NDA lifetime NDA that you have with the unit. You know, you were supporting special operations. You mentioned to me previously that you supported also 5th Group SF. But the reality is that you were in theater facing some really bad dudes.
So I would say that, like, it really didn't matter who I was supporting, right? Like what unit I was. It, like, if you look at the times that I was deployed, right, doesn't matter the unit. It was who was in charge of, who was the enemy at the time, right? So, like, obviously, first deployment, you know, when I first joined, that's right when Iraq first fell. So you had, like, you know, guys were still hunting the Ba'ath Party with Saddam's regime or whatever. And, you know, we had the whole deck of cards and all that stuff. And then out of that, you had Al-Qaeda. Then you had freaking Taliban, obviously, Haqqani Network. And then every offshoot of Al-Qaeda you could think of, whether that was in Iraq or Afghanistan. So, and then obviously with stuff happening in Syria, you have ISIS, right? So, like, I fought pretty much and went up against every major, like, terrorist organization that the U.S. has had in the Levant from 2003 until I think my last deployment was 2019. So 16 years of fighting these clowns.
Yeah, man, but they're deadly clowns, and the crap they would do. You know, like, we're talking about the Hurt Locker. There's a scene in the movie where the main character is walking down range towards an IED in the roadway, right? I think it was a cross intersection. And the point being is that there's a lot of ordnance buried in the ground that he's walking towards, and you see this taxi driving towards him, and he stops the guy at gunpoint, right?
You know, the whole adage that, like, you know, if you blow yourself up and you become a martyr for the cause, you get your 72 virgins, right? So, like, a lot of guys, they were drugged. So a lot of those guys did it willingly because they were, again, one of the things that I always try to do was understand our enemy, right? So I've read the Quran, right, multiple times to try to see, like, what's in that book that would make somebody want to blow themselves up, right? And so I couldn't find anything, right? Like, all religions at its core, Islam or any of the Abrahamic religions, is actually a beautiful thing, right? In the grand scheme of things, right? It's really, really easy when you have a group of uneducated people who can't read, they're illiterate, they can't go check that themselves. So they talk a lot of those guys into doing that because they were promised something in the afterlife. Like, I've seen guys get drugged, like with actual drugs. Like, I'll tell you a funny story where we pulled the guy out of a car. We didn't pull him out, but we, like, distance away. And whatever drugs he was on, he thought he was freaking invisible. And and I thought it was the funniest thing at the time. Again, like, he had tons of explosives in his car. But when we got the interpreter to tell him to get out of the car, like, his response was, "Holy shit, they can see me," right? So whatever he was on must have been really, really good. And he thought he was invisible and was freaked out that we could see him.
So you did EOD typical work, which is explosive ordnance disposal, but you also did a lot of the post-blast analysis.
Whenever something blows up, you want to know why, right? Like, especially when there's casualties involved, right? And if it's really, really big. And so from a conventional EOD side, a lot of EOD guys will go to, I think the ATF has a post-blast school. I went to the FBI post-blast school out in Lone Poke, California. That was really, really cool. And they show you how, like, even though it's different from a tactical standpoint, because you don't have as much time as you would if it was, like, stateside or, you know, at an embassy somewhere. But you get really, really good at saying, hey, here's this crater now, right? Here's what happened. You can collect evidence, and then you can get really, really good at, like, calling what type of explosive it is, right? And then how much it was. And then depending on what's going on, who was the target. And that actually helped, you know, do a lot of things. Look at, like, Oklahoma City, right? Like, the way they catch any of those guys, right? Unabomber, Timothy McVeigh, all these people. We took a lot of lessons learned from the FBI from a tactical standpoint, and then sped that up to you know, capture and wipe out entire networks, like terrorist networks, that is, right? And so that is a job for, like, that is a specific EOD job that, like, people think that we just go and, defuse bombs, but what happens when the bomb has already went off and you weren't there, right? So now you got to pretty much, I call it like equate it to spy versus spy, right? Like the old Mad TV stuff where something blew up. Now the commander's asking what blew up, how big was it? What was the target? Who was responsible for this? Because every bomb maker has their own telltale sign. That's kind of one of the things I did like about Hurt Locker is like you saw the scene where under his bed, I think he had like a whole box full of like just little parts and pieces. I don't think any EOD guy would keep all those like quote unquote war trophies, but because, like I said, because we were already taking all that stuff and sending it up as evidence, most EOD guys didn't like that part of the movie because they're like, we would never do that. Prior to them standing up certain task forces, like, yeah, we would do stuff like that. I can tell you right now, we were getting so many IEDs that they told us, like, unless it was something really, really big, like, to not send it up. So I was using all those IED parts to continue to, like, repair my robot.
There you go. At least it worked before.
Yeah, it's like I mean, it sucked, right? Like, but sometimes things blew up and nobody got hurt, right? And you find wires and stuff. It was like having your own Radio Shack in that, right? So
you were a kid.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of a dumpster diving, I'm now freaking blast hole diving, and I'm getting parts and pieces, and I'm fixing my own robot so that like it doesn't have to. My team can stay operational for a couple more weeks.
The Kingdom, the movie with Jamie Foxx. Is it Jamie Foxx?
Yeah.
Movie, and they go into the crater.
Yeah, that movie was again kind of a low key because the only people who do blast hole analysis are special agent bomb techs, which again, essentially EOD guys for the FBI. So yeah, I actually like that movie too. Oh, Abu Hamza.
Where'd you go first, Afghanistan or Iraq?
Iraq. I got 1, 2, 3. I think 3 or 4. Yeah, 3 or 4 deployments to Afghanistan. Afghanistan was interesting, man. Like it was Taliban mostly, still is, right? And then you started seeing the reason why I thought Afghanistan was interesting, at least like in Iraq, even though we like the enemy was in the civilian population, like and you really couldn't tell, it still was like Al Qaeda, right? And you had these little factions in these cities, but Afghanistan is so tribal that like you had the Taliban, but then out in like some of the mountain regions, you would have these other networks of tribal regions and these tribal people, and like their rules and their stuff, their laws and stuff go back, thousands of years. And then when you start seeing Al Qaeda go into Afghanistan, like that was, it was crazy because it was, I guess you could equate it to like policing, right? Like if you go into a city where you got like Bloods and Crips, right? You're going after the Bloods and the Crips, but they're also fighting each other. So sometimes you just stand back and see what the hell happens. Yeah. So that's how it was in Afghanistan, because it was like the Taliban had so much control over there, and then the tribal, and then when Al Qaeda started going in there and some of these other terrorist networks, like the Taliban wasn't having that.
And incredible how they just ruled through brutality, brute force.
Those countries are like stuck in time, right? And I don't think a lot of Americans understand that. And unless you've been over there and see it, a person will never understand it. So what I mean that they're stuck in time is you have cars, you have technology and cell phones, but then you have a sheep herder walking down the street. So like imagine being in downtown Miami and you got all this stuff, you got Lamborghinis, you got all this crazy stuff, right? Like technology, but then like you see people in man dresses and they're herding their sheep or their cows down through the city, right? So it's like on one hand, they are in modern times, but then their day-to-day lifestyle, they're still in biblical times, man. I remember going after a guy who had he was the bad guy we were looking for. We show him a picture of himself and he was like, that's not me. He had never seen himself before. He's never seen himself before. This dude was in his 40s and he had no mirrors, never seen himself. So the picture of himself, he did not believe that was him. It was him, but he had never seen himself before. So like that's where, and this was like back in 2015. So for all the technology we have then, like it is almost unfathomable to even imagine a person who's not blind, right, or anything crazy like that, has never used something as simple as a mirror. He's never seen what he looks like and didn't believe us. Like got mad at us and was like, that's not me. I don't know what the hell he thought he looked like, but he had never seen himself before.
So then from Afghanistan, you go to Syria, right?
Yeah.
And Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
Yeah.
Bad dude.
Yeah. Yep. And you got outside and all that sort of stuff. So like, yeah, it's funny. Syria to me was no different than Iraq. On a few of my deployments, I was deployed to an area that was right there on the Syrian border. And so, one of the, I would say one of the worst things that I saw was from the Syrian side, they drove a VBID, and this was prior to ISIS or anything that we were talking about Syria. They drove a VBID at that border checkpoint and detonated it and killed a bunch of families. So there's always been that rift on the Iraq-Syrian border.
The war after the war.
Yeah.
Soldier's Mind, 34 Laws for the War After the War. Taamir, please, I want you to dig deep on this one. I know you said you were unaffected, and I know that you made a pact with higher power or whatever, but what did that do to you?
In the moment, I'm unaffected, right? Again, and I wish I can give you the cheat code to say here's how I dealt with stuff, right? I've been dealing with. We talked about this the other day, right? Most of us, especially in special ops, we come into the military with trauma, and I think that's what special ops units look for, right? They look for we're all strays, right? And they give us a home. And I wouldn't tell you that none of it affected me. In the moment, I had a mission to do, right? And a lot of guys, and I'll tell a lot of people this, that as long as I had another mission, I can bury that stuff. How we do as men, right? From a mental health standpoint, it's hey, you don't want to let the person to your left or right down. So anything that I might have been feeling, that thing got buried deep. But once I retired and that uniform came off, all that stuff started bubbling up to the surface. And that's what I went through, right? If I'm not an EOD guy anymore, who the hell am I? If I'm not in the unit anymore, who the hell am I? Something that I spent most of my career trying to get to. Nobody prepared me for the aftermath of having an amazing career.
You got to get the book. It's on Amazon. Again, The Mind of a Soldier, 34 Laws for the War After the War. I want you to speak to those out there, brothers and sisters, who are hearing the noise, who are experiencing the same things you went through, same level or worse.
I would say probably 90% of the stuff that we've done in the military and seen in the military, humans weren't designed to see, right? So, and we definitely weren't designed to try to deal with that whatever you're holding on your shoulders or holding mentally alone. I challenge everybody to call that one friend, and when they say they're fine, call BS, throw the BS flag, and try to link up with them or have them open up. On the flip side of that, when that friend does call you, that one friend, I challenge on the other side of that phone call, tell somebody what's going on. Don't be embarrassed by it, right? Right, we're pack animals, or tribal, or however you want to call it. But when you get that phone call, instead of pretending that you're fine and saying, "Oh, I'm good," tell the truth. Hell, if you don't want to tell anybody, hit me up on LinkedIn or Facebook. Come, find me. I will answer any veteran. Since your podcast and since a couple other podcasts in the book, I get hit up by veterans all the time. And even if it's something of hey, I want to do this thing and I'm thinking about it, I need help. I'll give them the whole, every nonprofit that I know of, and put them in touch with the right help. I'm not saying that I can help all your problems, but there's 45,000 nonprofits out there for us that can help a lot of these problems, man. And if the cool thing is that if there's not a nonprofit that can help what you're going through, start one. That's your new purpose. Help people like you. And then pay it forward. Once you get out of that hole, just same way I did, write a book, help other veterans, freaking go back to school, volunteer somewhere, go mentor kids, do something, but stop that loop.
That's how I got a hold of you. I saw you on a podcast, a little shout out to Team House. And you were talking, I like what you said, and it resonated with me. And here we are.
Yeah, we're best friends doing karate in the basement and everything now.
It's good to talk to people like yourself. It's good to talk to others who have been there, because all of a sudden, what I think is big is minuscule. You got a better story. Yeah. The next person has a better story. And together we can heal through sharing our stories. For those of you watching who've gotten this far, if you like it, if you like this type of content, give us a like, subscribe, and share our content. Help us grow. We really could use your support. Also, stay tuned, because in the coming weeks, we will have back on the show Colonel B.J. Tedesco. He was a task force commander in Ramadi for the Second Battle of Ramadi, and one of his riflemen, Major Miguel Santana, who just released a book. It's titled Unheard Voices to Fight the Battle for Ramadi. Incredible stories. We'll have them both talking to us in the next weeks or so about their experiences. To the Millers, Grant, Michael Miller, we can't thank you enough, Community News team. Awesome to be here with you. Rachel Brummage, our producer behind the scene. We can't do this enough without you. We can't do enough without you. Sergeant Major Taamir Ransome. Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you. Thank you.